Hello everyone, I'm Pranshu. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. I can see quite a few people joining us, but anyway, we can get started now. I hope you're all well and keeping safe. Before we just get started with the presentation, I wanted to draw your attention to a recent poll that we have been running on LinkedIn to understand which is your favorite JavaScript framework to work with. I am sharing the URL here in chat. Please do cast your vote, and we promise to share the results and all insights we draw from this. Now, before we get started with the presentation, I'll just give a quick overview of Walking Tree for anyone joining us for the very first time. Walking Tree is a technology-focused company with our core focus on designing and building cross-platform web and mobile applications, perform system integrations, and enable digital transformation. We also specialize in data integration, data analytics, migration from legacy to modern systems, cloud migrations, and of course, perform UX design. Apart from end-to-end application development, we also provide custom solutions to enterprises for web and mobile, very specific services within the software development lifecycle like UI, UX design, microservices, DevOps, and cloud. Our flexible staff augmentation services provide clients with on-demand skills and resources to help to meet organizational and business objectives. And lastly, we also help you to implement certain solutions like employee assessment. We are one of the key partners for implementation of Digit, which is an open source platform for urban governance. That was about us. Now, today we have three presenters. Suman is Vice President Engineering here at Walking Tree. He has a total experience of over 14 years in designing technology architecture and guiding teams in agile technologies. His core strength is strategic planning and product management. Fani is a senior technical lead with us with experience of over 10 years now. Fani specializes in web and hybrid mobile application development with EXT.js, Sencha Touch, and AngularJS. We also have Abhilasha. She comes with an experience of over 16 years in designing and building complex enterprise web and mobile applications, especially using Angular, React, and Flutter. Without further ado, let's get going. Over to you, Suman. Hello, Suman. You're not audible. I think you'll have to.
Hey, sorry, I was speaking on mute. Can you hear me now?
Yes, perfectly all right. Yes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all for joining. Hope you're all staying safe and happily coding at your respective places. Thank you for joining. I'll briefly covering the agenda, what we are planning in this session. Uh, so when we want to present a webinar in the comparison of open source JS frameworks, so in what perspective we want to compare? Okay, that was the first question that we had for ourselves. So that's where we thought like, let's say, what are all the things that enterprises are expecting? What are all the things businesses are expecting? So then from the business expectations, what kind of architectural requirements we do have? And from enterprise expectations, we derived the architectural requirements. From there, we kind of derived certain capabilities that are mostly available or expected in the JS frameworks, and then we compared them. Okay, so that's how the agenda is also flowing here. So we talk about enterprise expectations and architectural requirements. I'll be covering first two topics. Then Abhilasha and Fani will be covering the technology comparison, and finally I'll be providing a summary. Okay, so yeah, let's get started. So before we talk about enterprise expectations, let's see generally what happens, what kind of conversations or tacit conversation happens on the floor of a development floor. Okay. So here you see we have two guys. One guy is an engineer who is busy in coding and developing the applications, and the other guy is a product owner. This guy is responsible to make the product successful in the market and face the competition. So the product owner directly sees the market competition and how his competitors are performing, what kind of technologies they are using, what kind of methods they are using to be successful, to make their product successful. Okay. So engineer is more focused on what do I need to do to make sure that I deliver a certain module in a given point, given specified timeline. Okay. So both are together, they work for the success of the product, but they do the things in a different perspective. Okay. So let's cover that aspect now. Okay. So here, engineer says that, okay, preparing a grid component. Okay. So generally, whenever we talk to any of our developers, we hear that, okay, okay, I'm developing this, I'm preparing this kind of stuff. Okay. So then product owner's perspective, the way he looks at it is that, can't we reuse a component that we prepared in a payments module? Maybe this component is already used in prepared in some other module. Why are we not reusing it? Okay. If we reuse that, there's a possibility that we can finish the work quickly. Then second, okay, busy in developing login functionality. Then the answer from the product, the way product owner looks at it is that, how many times we developed the login functionality? Why can't we plug in the existing login functionality into this module as well? Okay. The next question is that the next is that occupied in coding the screen flow for the invoice module. Okay, I have to prepare 3 screens. I have to connect these screens. That's what the engineer's perspective. Then the product owner looks at as, so can't we configure? Is there a way that we will write code only when needed? Otherwise, we just configure. The next is that struggling to embed a third-party application. That's what the engineer feels. Then product owner says that, can't it just be a sequence of steps that we need to follow every time? Okay. Are we not able to simplify things so that we'll be able to do it quickly and effectively? So both the guys, if you see here, they are actively working to make sure this product is successful, but they are looking at things in a different perspective. Okay. But when we look from the overall success of the product and the enterprise level, enterprises do have certain expectations from the technology team and the product owners. And let's look at what kind of expectations the enterprise has. Okay. So the enterprise expectations are as below, like enterprise expects the velocity. So the speed and the frequency, that means how often we are going to the customers and how quickly we are going to the customer end user. That defines the velocity. So enterprise expects velocity should be as much as possible, as much you can do, that increase the velocity, optimize the velocity. Okay. The next is the quality part of it. That means application must be meeting its business needs in the first go itself. We will not get a second chance many times to prove that you are good. So we get an opportunity to do a right thing for the first time only. Second time, our competition may take away all the effort that we have done so far because we were not able to deliver some quality product at a given point of time. Okay. So quality is at most important. So, and velocity and quality both needs to be met at the same time. So as I'm releasing quite often, if I say that I'm releasing a buggy code, not acceptable. As I have to do a quality work, I'll take a lot of time, not acceptable. So we have to optimize both velocity and quality. Apart from these two things, there are other important aspects for the enterprises. They look for the cohesivity. That means as an enterprise, when we decide to integrate other app or a third-party app into the suite, an existing product suite, then the cohesivity must be there. That means our product must be open, our application must be open, so that integration must be easy. It should not become a big effort. It should not be taking a lot of time. That's what the cohesivity is. Okay. Then fourth important aspect is the uniformity. The uniformity in the sense that, okay, the kind of UX patterns or the design patterns from the high level perspective, it should be uniform so that it's very easy to ramp up the teams. That means if you are following a different pattern, we may have a difficulty in training the newer members into the development process. So teams, enterprises do expect the uniformity in the overall product design. Okay, so these enterprise expectations are primarily to come out successfully from the competition. Okay, then from these enterprise expectations, we do derive certain architectural requirements. Okay, these architectural guidelines. These architectural guidelines, primarily we kept of 4 guidelines. That is primarily from the UI perspective. These architectural guidelines are from the UI perspective. Say 4 important architectural guidelines are component based. So when you say component based, the expectation is that any UI appearance or a behavior that needs to be reused at least more than once, then that should become a component. So that tomorrow you don't need to spend time on again coding that component. All you need to do is that connect to that component and use it in the other module. So the component based. Second important aspect is the automation driven. That means at all places, be it a coding or be it testing, be it a deployment, be it a regression testing, in all the places wherever you can automate, go for a maximum possible automation. What plan for the automation in the architecture such a way that do the plan for the automation so that we'll be able to quickly turn around. So we'll not take a lot of time to do the regression testing. We will not be spending time on the deployments. Okay, all of that needs to be automated. The importance is that we'll be able to quickly deliver. At the same time, this automation helps us to avoid certain human mistakes that we make. Okay, so that in the architecture, put a guideline for you that see what are all the areas that you should be able to automate. The next is the configurable UI. So this configurable UI, we can see 2 dimensions. One is the to some extent automation of the coding. At the same time, simplify the coding part. That means for every standard business need, you do not need a rock star developer to do the coding. Okay, so for standard business needs, people should be able to simply configure the screens and they should be able to connect and stitch it nicely. But only in case of the out of context or out of maybe some special needs, then only we should go for the coding. So configurable UI is that means no code or a less code. Okay. The next in terms of extensible design. So this extensible design is primarily in the context of that, okay, how well I'll be able to integrate my application into other application, vice versa, and how well maybe my UI can be easily rendered as a component or inject my application into some other application or take other application and inject into my application. That's where the extensible design comes into picture. Okay. So these are the high level 4 architectural guidelines. So what we have done is that from these 4 architectural guidelines, we kind of derived certain capabilities. And now Funny will take over. He will explain the different capabilities that we chose to compare. And Funny will be covering those capabilities. Then Abhilasha will cover the comparison part of it. Over to you, Funny.
Hello everyone, Funny here. Thank you, Suman. Thanks for your explanation. The architectural guidelines that you should be considered when we are developing an application. So guys, as we said, while comparing the frameworks, first we need to understand what are the what are the topics on which we have to compare the multiple frameworks that we are trying to compare. Then as part of that, we have identified a few capabilities that we want to compare between the frameworks to choose, to understand which capability is supported and what framework in which fashion. As part of that, here is a list of capabilities. To start with, components is the first one to come up with, where every framework, whatever the framework that we are comparing or trying to choose for our application development, the components plays a major role, where there should be a rich set of components available and reusable components as such. And we should be able to extend the component as well, components to build our own custom components with maybe slight tweaks in UI, UX, I mean, look and feel, or the behavior part of it. And as we know, ARIA, like accessibility part, should also be supported by the components which are coming out of the box in the framework, or any other third-party tools, third-party UI toolkits that they're supporting. But overall, coming to the components, there should be a rich set of components available and easy to extend, and ARIA support for the components is something that we should be comparing. We should be trying to figure out answers for these three questions in the framework. Moving on to internationalization. As we know, in today's world, every application is being supporting multiple languages. I mean, same application is being used in different locales, different countries or regions. So multiple support of multiple languages become very crucial part in application development today. So the UI framework should also support this multiple languages, where we should be able to configure different languages text in the application, and we should also be able to switch the languages in runtime, meaning runtime localization. Users should be able to switch from Spanish to English or English to German on runtime. That's an important aspect we should be considering. And then coming to accessibility, like accessibility is, as you all know, the application that we are developing should be accessible by the physically disabled person as well, physically disabled persons as well. Like, who may not be able to read, that the screen readers or the tab keys should help them to navigate the application. So this accessibility support should also be available within the framework that we are trying to choose for our application development. All the components that are available, there should be accessibility or ARIA support, ARIA enabled components. And whatever the custom components that we are building, the framework should have a easy mechanism to add this ARIA capability or accessibility to the components that we are building. And data management, data is a critical part today. I mean, all the applications are revolving around the data, I mean, to capture or show the data. So there should be an easy way to manage data within the components or between the components in the application that we are building. Maybe data flow between the view and the services, backend services, or within the components or within the screens. Then moving on to theming. As we are building a web application, the latest UI UX trending themes are coming up, like material design, or for that matter, any other design concepts. So the application that we are going to build should have a capability of theming, providing different themes to our application. To support that different theming, I mean, multiple theming, our framework should, whatever the framework we are choosing, that should have a light, I mean, decoupling between the theme and the component code that we are writing. Meaning, to change the theme of a component or the look and feel of a component, we should not be disturbing the component's code. And there should be at least a few out-of-the-box themes available where we can choose which one suits better for us and develop the application. Because every time we want to be building a new theme may not be an easy task. And ease of customization. Definitely, whatever the out-of-the-box themes available will not fit in all our requirements. Definitely we have to customize. So customizing the theme should also be easy as much as possible. These three factors we should be considering when we are choosing a framework when is specific to theming in the framework. And moving on to responsiveness, as we know, the applications that we are building today are rendering themselves, or users are trying to access the applications in multiple form factors, meaning desktops, laptops, tablet, mobile, and other devices as well. So here, the difference between these the multiple devices is the form factor. I mean, the screen resolution would be different. Then the screen that is rendering in the desktop may not be able to render in the mobile directly, but the responsiveness, I mean, the screen should adjust itself, behave responsively and adjust itself in the mobile view. So responsiveness becomes a critical component that we have to consider when we are choosing a framework, so that a view adjusts dynamically based on the form factors. Then moving on from responsiveness, application performance is another key factor once we have all these basic things covered. Now, as the application grows, application performance becomes a bottleneck. Generally, we see the basic minimal application with 1 or 2 screens would perform better, but as the application grows, the application load time is drastically increasing. I mean, it takes a minute or 30 seconds, 40 seconds to load. So the build size is something that we have to consider. How what is the footprint of the build that this framework is going to generate, so that on which we can figure out the load time of the application. And as we know, when we are building an enterprise application, there'll be multiple modules that has to be developed. So dynamic or lazy loading of the modules would help to reduce the application load time. So if the framework that we're going to choose has this capability, that's a plus. And then DOM manipulation in the big or heavy applications, manipulating a DOM, or like hiding a button or showing some other screen or hiding the entire screen, is nothing but manipulating a DOM by adding the properties also. So performance would impact if the DOM manipulation is not followed in the right approach. So you should also considering what are the DOM manipulation practices or approach that the framework is following, so that we can figure out whether the performance given by the framework suits to our application need or not. And then earlier, as we discussed different form factors, responsiveness, when using the responsiveness feature, our application can be demonstrated or rendered into a different form factors, for example, mobile or a tablet. But just rendering would not be enough. The user gestures should have, application should be able to capture the user gestures and show them the response, the behavior of the application. But that the framework should also support the touch capabilities. It should be able to register or listen to the touch gestures. So this is one of the capability that we have to compare or see when we are choosing a framework for development of our application. And moving on to state management, as we know, state management is nothing but nowadays this has become a common use case where user is using a particular application navigated into a particular screen, and unfortunately he has to reload or refresh the screen. Then user is expected to see in the same screen. User is expecting to launch the application in the same screen. So the data or the state of the application should be stored and should be given back when the application is user is trying to reload the application. So to manage the state, we have to also figure out how well the framework is supporting the state management so that it can be restored easily. And then moving on to extensibility, as Suman explained in the architecture guidelines, extensibility is one of the factors which we have to consider how well third-party plugins like, as Suman explained, maybe authorization or any other already built-in libraries or screens that we have already developed, how well we can reuse those and integrate them within the application seamlessly without more effort. This also becomes an important capability that we should be considering while choosing a framework. And format of data sources, yes, as we know, data sources, I mean, there are multiple applications running. APIs will be developed by multiple teams. Then the technologies chosen might be different, or the data request and response formats might be different. So the framework that we are choosing should be capable of handling all the different types of protocols like REST APIs or JSON-P APIs, SOAP or Socket APIs. And the framework should also support parsing the different data formats as well, meaning the response of the APIs can be in JSON, XML, or CSV formats as well. So this capability of reading the data from different sources or parsing the data, and also parsing the data from different formats, would also be a key factor that we should be considering. And moving on to charts library. In nowadays, in any application, chat becomes a minimal basic requirement, where the dashboards that we're showing, the statistics that we want to show to the user. So chat's capability, either there should be an in-house support of chats, or at least basic chats support in in-house, or there should be a capability to integrate the third-party chatting libraries available in the market seamlessly. Then moving on to DOM management, as we discussed, and as the application grows, DOM management becomes a critical factor which derives the performance of the application. So the approach for a DOM manipulation should definitely be considered when we are choosing a framework for developing our application. And dependency injections is one of the design pattern evolving nowadays, or using nowadays in most of the applications, where it helps to decouple the modules or the classes so that they can be injected as and when needed. So there should be a capability or support within the framework that we are choosing for our application for a dependency injection or similar kind of pattern availability. And web workers, coming to web workers is latest feature that is available in HTML5, I mean, latest web browsers, which helps us to run the multiple threads within the browser to perform a huge task without impacting the rendering part of the application in the browser. So this may or may not be needed, but having the support for web workers within the framework that we're going to choose would definitely help in long term. And testing is the next capability that we've considered, where development along with the testing, testing is almost equal to development. So we should be able to write automated or at least unit test scripts or automation test scripts by QA also to be written for the applications that we are developing. So there should be a capability at least supported by the framework in-house, or the extensive libraries are available within the market. The support to that extensive libraries should be available within the framework that we're going to choose. And then coming to packaging, there should be an easy way available within the framework, or support to the other existing tools available within the market. There should be an easy way to integrate that and produce builds or packaging for different environments of the web application as well as mobile applications, like support to Webpack or Bezel, any other tools, to minimize the footprint of the application and as well as run as smooth as possible. And scaffolding is the next factor, where this scaffolding would help us to produce the application structure, or the for that matter any component or a class structure that we want to follow as a best practice across the application. So having this scaffolding will help us to maintain the same practices across the application. So there should be a support within the framework that we're going to choose, or there should be at least support for one scaffolding, or it will be better if there is a capability to define our own scaffolding so that it can be followed across the application as well. Moving on from scaffolding, these are the other capabilities that we see which are not really into coding, but these are the other factors that would help us to maintain our application basically. So community support is something where when we're choosing an application, the size of the community, the activities, how active the community is, and who is backing up the community. These three things would definitely matter, because when we are stuck up with something, there should be somebody out there who can help us to solve the problems that we are facing. It could be a open source community or the enterprise community. That's a different one based on the framework that we choose. But community, in terms of community support, the size, the activities, and the backbone of the community is something we should be considering when we choose a framework. Release cadence is the next one, where this will help us to understand how frequently there will be new releases or bug fixes available will be available in the framework that we're going to choose, and how frequently we'll get the new releases like major features or new features available within the framework, so that our application would not be stale. There'll be people available to help us, or the resources available. And popularity, definitely this will help us to understand how many different domains of applications are using this framework. So just to bearage or compare how well this framework helps us to build our application specific to our domain. So in that terms, we should see how many number of solutions have been built using using this application, and how many companies are using this framework to build their applications. This would help us to identify how well this framework suits our application need. And resource availability, as we know, resource plays a major role. So availability of resources becomes critical when we are choosing a framework to build our applications. So when we are considering this, the learning curve involved in learning the specific framework that we're choosing to develop a application, or how many people, or how much percentage of people available in the market with the specific skill on the framework that we are choosing, makes some difference. And ease of upgrade, as we talked about release cadence, that will definitely help us to identify how well, how frequently we can get the latest releases. But definitely when we have that frequency of releases, there should be easy way to upgrade our application with the latest versions that are being released. So when we are talking about it, we should be able to figure out there should be some easy way to identify the upgrade steps. And first of all, how well the framework is maintaining the backward compatibility, and how much effort it is taking to upgrade for each version. So these three things we have to consider when we are choosing a framework. And the final one is licenses. The type of license and the cost for development or release is something that we should consider. But here in this specific case, the three frameworks that we are choosing today to compare, all of them are open source and MIT. So we should not be majorly worried about this license part specific to this session. So these are all the capabilities that we have considered to compare. And for the next slide, Abhilasha will take it over and explain us the capabilities, how well these capabilities are supported in all the three different frameworks. Over to you, Abhilasha.
Thank you, Funny. Hello, everybody. So we saw the different capabilities which we compared. Now we look at how each of these three frameworks which we are going to discuss fare in each of these capabilities. So to start with, we know that all the three frameworks here, Angular, Vue, and React, they follow component-based architecture. That is, the UI is made up of components. So when we talk about components availability, the availability of a rich library of components. So in Angular, we have the Angular material, which is a rich library, which is a part of the framework itself. For Vue, we have some external libraries like Vue Material, Prime Vue, which also provide a rich set of UI components. For React, again, we have external set of libraries like Material UI, Semantic, Prime React, which provide a rich UI component set to be used in the React applications. Coming to internationalization, so again, a very hot topic and very much needed in today's applications. So Angular has like out-of-the-box support, wherein you have I18N tools as a part of the framework. Also, the Angular CLI, it actually helps in generating the codes to support multiple languages, to create boilerplate files for the translators, and also it helps in building like the final bundles language specific if that is the requirement. For Vue, we have an external plugin that is Vue I18N, which enables us to implement internationalization in Vue applications. In React, we have multiple external libraries like React I18 Next, React INTL, etc., which help us to bring in the internationalization capability in the React applications. Moving on to accessibility. So accessibility in Angular, it is being supported by the Angular framework in a way that the CDK, the component development kit, which is a part of Angular material, it includes A11Y package that actually provides some additional tools to support accessibility. Like there are some tools like Live Announcer and Track Focus, which are like specifically focused for the accessibility needs. For Vue, we have support for the ARIA attributes. So just like we add the ARIA attributes on the HTML tags, we can do that on the Vue components also easily. React also fully supports building accessible website, and it is using the standard HTML techniques. You can include the ARIA attributes in JSX also. So JSX also supports the use of ARIA attributes. Also, another thing in accessibility which we should remember is using semantic HTML. So the semantic tags, not to use div. So for that also React has a good solution of the React fragment, which will avoid this unnecessary inclusion of div tags, which will disrupt the accessibility and semantic value of your HTML. Moving on to data management. So how we manage the local data in our components and how we share the data. So for that, Angular services, which is like a type of feature we have in Angular, which helps in sharing data. So you have the logic in the services, and the data is like shared or used by the different components through the services, which are made available by the using the Angular's dependency injection. In Vue, we have this data function, which is a part of the component, which actually like comprises of the component, which will make the like the data part, which will make the component reactive. So whenever the data changes, the component will be re-rendered. So that is like defined as a part of the data function. Also, Vue supports props. So whenever the data has to be shared, like from a parent to a child, so that can be done using the props or the properties. In React again, we have the concept of local state. So local state is where, I mean, if you have to maintain the data locally within a component, and you can also pass the data to the child using props. So that handles or takes care of the data management locally, and also sharing the data between the parent and the child. Coming to theming, so like as Fanny mentioned, like theming is a requirement to make the application like have a dynamic injection of theming and random different themes. So so in Angular material, which is available as a part of the Angular framework, we have out of the box themes available, and also we have the capability of defining custom themes. Similarly, with Vue and React, where we have the external UI libraries, which we use for the rich UI components. So we also have the theme availability, wherein we have some out of the box or the library themes, or we also have the capability of defining custom themes. In React, we have a concept of style components, wherein you can apply some themes or some CSS specific to a component. Next, coming to state management. So state management is like when you want to handle a global state, and you want to have all the state at one place, and like the actions or the change of state is in a single direction. So you have a control on the state. So Angular out of the box, it achieves this through the Angular services, wherein you handle the data there, and then all changes are through the services only, with along with the RxJS observables. If you want to achieve it, or if you want to specially use Redux, you can also do that. So Redux is a state management tool which you can use with Angular using NGRX or NG2 Redux. For Vue, we have this Vuex, which is a state management library, which is part of the framework, and it also integrates with the DevTools extension to give you a good export and import of the state, like the status of the state, if like for debugging, that is really useful. Coming to React, so React has like if you think about global state and React, so you have context API for that, of course, but that is a solution you will not use when the data is very frequently changing. So in that case, in most React applications, we we depend on Redux. So we use Redux with the use of the React Redux libraries in conjunction with Redux Thunk, Redux Saga for middleware. Coming to responsiveness, so responsiveness, again, the material component libraries which are part of the Angular framework, they provide good responsive and rich UI components which can be easily used and extended as a part of your application. If you're making use of external UI libraries also, so they are also quite responsive, and they give a good responsive look and feel when you're using the application in multiple screens. The same applies to React, where you use like React Material UI or Semantic. So you get a good responsive UI component set. The next point, application performance. So this is a very important aspect, and luckily, and in this aspect, all the three frameworks are equally good, I would say. So Angular has shown a very good improvement with its latest release, the Angular 9, wherein you have the IDE compiler. So this gives you a smaller bundle size by removing all the unnecessary parts of the dependencies, and you get a really optimized startup. So the startup time is improved with the help of this, and the runtime performance has been good in Angular. And yeah, of course, with the new DOM, which we'll be discussing, so that has also resulted in improvement of runtime in Angular 9. In Vue, Vue also has a very good startup and runtime performance. React is also equally good, and it is considered good for applications which have to render frequently changing data because of the control on the DOM with respect to the virtual DOM. So yeah, it is used for applications with frequently changing data. Next, coming to touch enabled. So another feature wherein we want our apps to have a touch experience. So Angular supports Hammer.js gestures, which is like the standard library for handling the touch gestures. And it gives out of the box support. You can include it with the Hammer.js script, and the Hammer module is imported at the root. And then you can make use of the gestures available as a part of this library. For Vue, you have an external library like Vue Touch Events, which enable these touch events, which you can handle in your application with the help of these external library. For React also, there are some standard touch events which are available, and to give a more comprehensive and complete package, you can say. So we have this React Touch library, which is a set of wrapper components which handle the touch interactions in a more declarative way for React. Coming to extensibility, so the ability to enhance your applications and be able to reuse the functionalities. So in this aspect, Angular has an inbuilt concept called Angular elements. So these Angular elements are nothing but these are like components which you can publish as a HTML component and can be reused by other frameworks. And so it is a framework agnostic component which you can publish or which you can create as a part of Angular and also use between different projects. Vue also has this capability. So in Vue also you can create web components using this third-party library, which is web component wrapper library. So it enables you to create as well as work with web component APIs. With React, there is no out-of-the-box support, but then there is a workaround available using which you can make use of web components. But then you have to be like careful about the components which you are using. So possibly like if you have some imperative actions, so you may have to make use of some ref handles in order to like take a handle of that web component. So yeah, it will be a component basis use case wherein if you have to use it, but it is not very common to use web components in React. Support for different formats of data sources. So that is there in all the three frameworks because they are basically JavaScript and TypeScript, and they are very well capable of handling the different formats of the request and response and convert it into the required format. Next, the chart library. So charts are required for data visualization, a very important ask for today's enterprises. And there are like a wide variety of libraries available for this, wherein you can really choose based on what chart you really need for your application. So as you can see here, like NGX charts, eCharts, NG2 charts, Prime NG charts for Angular. For Vue, again, you have eChart, Chart.js, HighCharts, React, Rechart, Victory, Chart.js. So this is like just a short list. Actually, the list is very long, and you really have a wide variety to pick from. DOM management. So yeah, this is another important aspect which really impacts your application performance. So in Angular, the latest version of Angular, we have the concept of incremental DOM, which is actually like different from how it used to work earlier. So earlier it was renderer 2, which did the DOM manipulation and rendering. Now it is taken care by Ivy renderer. So Ivy renderer believes in a concept wherein they like it doesn't make use of any memory to re-render whenever there is no change. Like if there is no change in the DOM, there will be no memory allocated. Only when there is a addition or removal, only then there will be a change in the memory allocation. Otherwise, it is just like a series of instructions in which form it is saved, and that's how it is like executed to be rendered on the screen. So it does not cause any re-render of the complete thing. It is very like only the addition or removal, that part is taken care. So that avoids any unnecessary re-render, and that's how it has really brought in a lot of improvement in the runtime of Angular 9 applications. Coming to Vue and React, so like they both follow the virtual DOM concept, which has been like popular for their rendering fashion. So like the virtual DOM is like a copy of the DOM, and you avoid touching the real DOM. You only like create a new copy of the virtual DOM, which is just a JavaScript object, and that is what is compared to find what is the change, and then only that change is finally made to the real DOM. So here also you're avoiding like major changes to your real DOM, and that's how it is very fast, and you're also avoiding the re-render of the complete DOM. Only the change is being re-rendered. Next, coming to dependency injection. So this is like as Fanny mentioned, another pattern which is like very much promoted, as it is a good programming practice to avoid hard coding and like whatever dependency you're using, you just inject it into the component and use it. So Angular has a very good support for dependency injection, wherein any dependency you will just inject it through the constructor, and then the component or the directive can make use of your dependency, which could be a service. Similarly, Vue also has a good support for dependency injection. So there is a concept of in React, there is no explicit dependency injection, but then by default, JSX, the way it is built, it supports dependency injection inbuilt. So that's why we need not worry about any explicit dependency injection here. The way the data is passed through the JSX tags, like from the parent to the child, it takes care of that dependency injection to flow in a proper manner and avoid any hard codings. Next, coming to web workers. So web workers, like when I used to reduce the load from the main thread and have asynchronous threads, browser threads, which could support other operations. So basically, Angular has a out-of-the-box support for web workers, whereas for Vue, we have a plugin, that is Vue Worker plugin, which enables us to use web workers. For React, there is no out-of-the-box support, but then you can still, like, there is a workaround available which ensures that you can set up web workers and use in React also. Finally, coming to the automation tools. So scaffolding, Angular is a bit strong in scaffolding because of the Angular CLI, and it supports the schematic, which actually Angular, like you can create new schematics and which can help you in generating code for your project. So basically, Angular CLI itself is a very good tool which helps you generate like the initial project structure. Then if you want to make changes to your project, your new models, new modules, components, directives. So for everything you can use ng generate. And similarly, like even for internationalization, the CLI has support to generate the skeleton code. Vue also has a CLI which supports some level of scaffolding, and Vue CLI helps you to generate like the initial project setup. Also, Vue CLI has the capability of to enhance its behavior by introducing plugins. So you can like additionally add some plugins, and then they can further help you in scaffolding. Finally, coming to React. So React as such like does not have a CLI, and for your initial project structure, you have some third party like libraries like the Create React app, which is the most popular. But then yeah, it's just for the initial project structure setup. Ease of coding and maintenance. So the way each of these frameworks is structured ensures like how easy it is to code and as well as maintain. So Angular components are much more structured, and the way they are designed, like the model, the view, that is the template, and the controller, that is the logic which you write in the TypeScript, they are very properly like segregated and well defined. So it may be difficult to learn initially because there are a lot of things here, but then once you know, it is very good. Like you cannot do anything with it. You have to follow the Angular way, and then it really becomes easy to maintain. With Vue, it gives you more flexibility. So the Vue components have HTML, JavaScript, which are segregated. It's not mixed up, and it gives you a lot, like you can really write anything in your Vue components, from simple HTML and JavaScript to JSX also. So Vue is very flexible in that way. But then the downside is if like if you don't have proper structure, then people can misuse it, and then it becomes difficult to maintain. With React, you have like you only have the JavaScript, and there is no clear segregation between HTML and JavaScript. HTML is embedded in JavaScript in the form of JSX. So some people may not like it, but then that's how it's the React way of doing it, and it's quite popular, I would say. So yeah. Next, coming to testing. So availability of the in-house testing tool. So we have Angular testing test framework support as a part of the Angular test utilities, and also the like initial support, initial setup of Angular also sets up your Jasmine and Karma setup is done as a part of your initial project setup. For Vue also you have Vue test utils, which enable you to write automation tests for your Vue components. For React also, so you have your Jest and Enzyme. So Jest is set up as a part of your Create React app setup. And you can also install or add React testing library, which is another set of helpers which like make your testing much more easy and more predictable. Coming to packaging, so availability of tools. So for Angular, you have Bazel and Webpack, which are the tools used for building and packaging your Angular applications. For Vue and React, it is Webpack, which is most commonly used. Migration to newer versions. So usually like all the frameworks will come up with a set of like list of changes which come up in the new release, and then you follow those changes to go on with the upgrade. With Angular, you have an additional tool, which is the Angular Upgrade Guide, which is just user-friendly questionnaire, you can say, where you can give your from and to versions and the type of application you're trying to upgrade, any dependencies which you have, and then it will give you a very good list of things which you should do, list of steps which you should follow. So other than that, Vue and React will always like give you a set of upgrade steps. Finally, coming to the other factors. So community support. So we know that Angular is backed by Google and React is backed by Facebook. Hence, the huge community and the greater popularity. Vue is like a newer kid and not backed by biggies. Like it has its own community which promotes and which is like actively involved in Vue. So that's how the numbers. And coming to release cadence, so with Angular you have a very high release flexibility frequency. So every 6 months you see a major release, which is a very good thing, because if there are any new features which you're waiting for, you don't have to wait long, because as you know, like now you have Angular 9 with Ivy, which people had been waiting. So that's how like you get the release fast. With Vue, the last release was in December 2019. With React, it was March 2020. So you don't see that frequently with these other two frameworks. Popularity wise, so based on the Google search and all, so you see more like 3 million plus users for Angular and React because of its use in the wikis, and many other Fortune 500 companies which are using it. Vue, which is like mainly used in China, so there you have like 92K plus users. Availability of skilled resource, again, so you see a better availability for Angular, a little less for React, and for Vue it is least. So if you think of Vue developers, you will find more in China because that's where the more support is. Otherwise, it is like popularity or demand wise, I would say React is a bit higher, and availability wise, Angular is a bit high. So yeah, finally the license. So license wise, we are all happy, like all free MIT license. So we are really open to make a choice between these three wonderful frameworks. So yeah, that's all. So over to Suman to help us with the summary and making a choice.
Thank you, Abhilasha, for covering the comparison. Now, as you all hear, when you see compare these technologies, most of the features, most of the capabilities, all the technologies are supporting. Okay, and it is very, very a difficult choice. Sometimes those choice can be countered, and choice will vary from the personal experience and the kind of things you expose. So what we have done is that rather than telling that Angular is good or React is good and Vue is good, we try to approach the problem in a different way. That we try to derive, okay, when we should use Angular, when we should use React, and when we should use Vue. Okay, so that's what I'm going to cover in the next slides. Okay, so when to choose Angular. So our understanding, our experience says that, okay, if you are building an enterprise web app, that means where you are building enterprise scale application which contains different modules and if strong cohesion is needed, I think Angular is a better choice. And one-stop shop, that means most of the features that you are expecting for the web application framework, that is already inbuilt as part of Angular, be it automation testing, be it web workers, be it dependency injection, be it in-house library itself, UI library. So all of that is kind of readily available with Angular. So if you are looking for a one-stop shop, or in the enterprise application, the upgradation must be easy. With a one framework upgradation, automatically everything will get upgraded. That case also, it looks for better to go for Angular. Then when you're building some kind of modular application, where we have a modular team, like let's say the big enterprise application with multiple modules and those modules need to communicate, that's where Angular still performs. Then an important aspect is a skill team. That means Angular expects you to understand strengths and weaknesses of a JavaScript. And apart from that, TypeScript also understanding is also needed. So that's where, let's say if you have a strong team, if you're building an enterprise web application, and if you're looking for one common solution for all the different needs of the web application development, then go for Angular. And second is when to choose React. That means when you are going to build a highly dynamic UI, that means if you have an application where the data gets changed quite often, that means maybe in a given minute time, multiple widgets needs to be dynamically updated. So that's where the power of React comes into a picture. Okay, and React, let's say if you have, let's say I want to use the best tool in the different frameworks and integrate them. You want to have your own choice. Example that I want to use Redux because that's very good in state management. When you want to go for that kind of choice, React is good. The lightweight application. So that means like overall, like if you want application size to be light, again, React is an option. Then in terms of skills part, you do not need to have the highly skilled JavaScript people. Okay, even if the skill level is moderate, also people will be able to cope up in the React as well. Okay. Here the challenge that we have in defining it is that we can counter argument that, okay, with the Ivy compiler in place, Ivy renderer in place, even Angular can give you that highly dynamic UI as well as the lightweight application as well. Then comes to the Vue. Let's say Vue as such do not force you to follow specific defined standards. That Vue gives you a freedom to write the code the way you want. So that's where people choose Vue, that when you want to ship some MVP quickly, and when you have a small app with a specific precise need to do certain activity, then Vue can be used. And if your application is more animation driven, a lot of animations are involved, then even there also Vue can be preferred. And even if you do not have the highly skilled people available in your team, even if they know certain JavaScript, still like coding in Vue is easy compared to both other technologies. Okay. Again, this Vue, whatever I've explained based on our experience so far in Walking Tree, we are okay to hear the counter argument, and we can talk and we can discuss about that. So what I've done is that from these three comparisons, I try to even further simplify and summarize, maybe taking it 10,000 feet high. So that's where the summary comes into a picture. Let's say when you are, let's say Angular, when you are building a suite of applications which are going to work together, and if you have a highly skilled team, and if you want to follow a strict standard so that you'll be able to maintain the application over a period of time. Okay, big application. Okay. Then comes to the React. Let's say when you're looking for a moderate sized app with a dynamic UI, which you need to UI needs to be rendered quite often, dynamically changing the widgets. Then that's good. Even if a team with a moderate skills also will work. Okay. Vue here, let's say learning curve is fast, so that we can quickly build the people. Even with the fair skills, people can quickly ramp up, and we can ship the MVPs quickly. Small app, if you want to speed over the standards, then Vue can be an option. Okay, but you may have certain maintenance challenges later, but you can ship fairly easily, quickly. You can ship small MVPs. Okay, so that's a summary. Uh, uh, so with this, I'm done with my our presentation. I think Pranshu, maybe the floor is open for the questions based on the time.
Right. Thank you, Suman. Thank you, Funny and Abhilasha. Everyone, if you have any comments or questions, we have still some time left. You can leave your questions in the Q&A box, and we'll try to respond to as many as possible. And I hope everyone has cast their vote as regards to their favorite JavaScript framework to work with. I will be sharing the URL once again. Meanwhile, if you have any questions, it will be great if you can put them into the Q&A box. Okay. Suman, we have a question from Krishna. Hello. Or any of the panelists could respond to this. You can see it in the Q&A box. Krishna has asked, can commerce applications use React like Flipkart?
Okay. I think if the e-commerce application, if you are going for the micro UI, which contains multiple modules, uh, then Angular can be a preference. But let's say if you are thinking about a small e-commerce application to take care of a certain specific need, then a React can be an option. And I'm not sure about what Flipkart is using. If anyone knows in the panel, maybe they can comment.
Right. We have another question that's from Aditya. He's asked, what is an injection attack?
So the injection attacks is that, let's say if someone is using our application, if they're able to inject a JavaScript, let's say the injection can be classified into multiple types of injection. Sometimes people do the SQL injection attacks. Sometimes it will be a JS injection attack. So primarily in our context, okay, if it is a JS injection attack, idea is that the people should be able to inject their own JavaScript into our application. So that's called JS injection.
Right. Thank you, Suman. There's another question from Suryakant who's asked, which technology supports both web development and mobile app hybrid with single project?
Okay. The good part is that all at the Angular, Vue, and React, all of them do support the mobile and web development together. But the challenge, what I see with our experience, is that because they will be called as a hybrid applications. That means you are building a code in Angular and you're packaging that into Android and iOS. So relatively, the performance will be slightly slower. So the Angular, React, Vue, all three support this, but they are having a tough competition from frameworks like Flutter and React Native, because they are giving the near native experience with a single code base.
Right. Our next question is, I'm comfortable with vanilla JavaScript. What should I choose between these three to learn first and would be fair journey in JavaScript?
Yeah, start with Vue.js.
That would be one of the simpler ones to get started with.
Yes.
Right. Naveen is asking, which of the technology is better for mobile applications?
if you say that among these three, like Angular, React, and Vue, I think they are equally the competitive. It boils down to, are you building the enterprise scale application, or it is a highly performance driven? But if you are asking that what technology should I use to build my mobile application, maybe specifically if you have a choice, go for Flutter and React Native.
Right. We have one more question from Suryakanta. Is asking, can we have a material design model using React and Vue?
I think React has a React material, which is supporting the React material design in the React. I'm
yeah,
not
and
sure.
Vue also has material kit and Vue material design.
Right. I think those are all the questions that we have for today. Before we sign off for the day, just wanted to remind you all to please vote for your favorite JavaScript framework to work with. I am sharing the URL once again in chat. We will obviously be sharing the results with all of you. And I also wanted to let you guys know that we're having a very interesting lineup of webinars next month, which includes ones on feature phone apps, augmented reality, and Flutter's stateful widgets. So I'll be sending invites to all. Until next time, folks, thank you once again for joining us today, and we'll see you again. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Pranshu. Thank you, team.
Thank you.
Thank you.